Hello, everyone. This is my talk on how I got here in the industry and my industry journey. My name is Nicole Gilroy, and I'm a junior associate producer at Ubisoft Leamington, which is in the Midlands of the UK, in case there's anyone that doesn't know where that is. So yeah, just to introduce myself a bit more, I'm Northern Irish, but I grew up in Belgium, which is why I've got a weird accent, just to answer that question that people might have. So yeah, as I said, I'm a junior associate producer at Ubisoft Leamington. I've been in the industry for almost 6 years now. It would be 6 years in April. And I've been in production for just over 3 years of that. And yeah, I live in Leamington Spa in the West Midlands. Yeah, so this talk, there's going to be a talk. So I'm going to first of all go through my journey within the games industry, like from getting into it and to where I am now, and just explaining what kind of things I did in each of my jobs, what I learned, and things that I kind of wish that I knew at the time but didn't, because we're all learning. It's just life, isn't it? And maybe just kind of what I would have done differently if I knew the things that I know now. So yeah, let's go. Oh, and I'd like to shout out to the Ubisoft Reflections and Leamington Creative Services team. They're the ones that made these super cool slides, not me. I just want to use the slide because I like Assassin's Creed Origins. I didn't work on that or anything, in case anyone was wondering. So yeah, let's go. So I'm going to start with higher education. I'm not going to talk about like A-levels or high school kind of stuff, because I understand that there's people all over the world potentially watching this. And A-levels, I think, only apply to the UK. And I didn't do A-levels anyway, so it doesn't matter. So when I was applying for university, I initially was applying for creative writing courses because I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then I discovered the game design creative writing course, which is one I ended up going to. At the time when I was applying, this was the only course that I knew of in the UK that had this joint honours, which is why it appealed to me. So it became my first choice. And I actually didn't get an offer in the end because I didn't get the grades in school, because I wasn't very good at school. I ended up going in through clearing. And I think that that's kind of what spurred me on to work extra hard when I did get to uni. I mean, I obviously had fun like everyone does, university, parties and all that stuff. But I was really, really determined to get into the industry. Like as soon as I found out there was a games industry to get into. So as part of my course, specifically for games design, I learned things like design theory, design documentation, and just general industry knowledge. We also used a prototyping tool program called Multimedia Fusion. And, I learned the general life skills that you just do at university. And I also learned that I would never be able to program. I still remember like being in absolute tears because someone was trying to teach me how to do it. And I was like, I just don't understand it. So that was just my acceptance of I was never going to do that. So while I was at uni, that's when I kind of discovered about the production role in the games industry. And as soon as I found out what that was, I just thought, yeah, I think that's the thing that appeals to me the most. As much as I was studying a games design course, I think I always knew that I wanted to be in production as soon as I found out what it was. So yeah, and yeah, it was great. I'm not saying that you have to go to university to get into the industry, but I think it helps for the most part, especially if you're going to be a programmer or anything particularly complicated like that. I mean, programming is complicated to me, so yeah. So moving on to my first 2 jobs in the industry. My first ever job was as an intern for a charity called GamesAid. So GamesAid are an umbrella charity. Umbrella charity means that they gather money through various means, from sponsorships or through events and such. And then that money is then split across and then given to other charities. And the thing with GamesAid is that it was working with people within the games industry. And it was just how I met loads and loads of people in the industry, through organizing events, managing social media, and just interacting with those different people. So, I was working with, devs, I was working with journalists, I was working with people in marketing, people in publishing, just everywhere. And that's pretty much how I got my next job, which was as part of Sega Europe, as a project coordinator. It was a bit of a weird way that it happened, but the first office that I worked in was somewhere in central London, and it was going to get demolished. So I got moved into the Sega Europe office because one of the trustees at the time worked at Sega Europe and said, we can spare a desk for Nicole to work at. And I got there, and I just kind of got along with everyone, I suppose. I don't know. And I just kind of got approached one day and said, oh, do you want to work for Sega? And I was like, okay. So that's kind of how it happened. And yeah, it was great. Like, I really loved both of the jobs. I found them really fulfilling. I learned a lot, just about how to function as an adult, I think. So it was really good. These were both sort of like, my first full-time jobs. I was really fortunate that I didn't have to work through uni or anything, which is a very privileged position to be in, I understand. Yeah, I just felt really lucky that I had a really good introduction into the games industry. So I've just kind of listed some of the things that I learned. My last point was that I think living in London by myself, with pretty much no support network, my parents all still live in Belgium, and my partner, now fiance, was up here in the Midlands. So I just felt like quite alone. And I think as much as I loved my jobs down in London, like everything else in my life was kind of lacking. And that's one of the things that, looking back, I think even writing this whole talk, I realized how miserable I was actually. But, I think in retrospect, maybe it would have been better for me to just kind of come up here earlier to the Midlands. I don't know, but it's just one of those things that it just happened, and it's all good now. So yeah, but I think if someone just sat me down and said, I think you should maybe like look at what you need like in your personal life and maybe prioritize that a bit more, that might be beneficial for you. But no one did that. If they did, I don't remember, and I was in denial. So yeah. So after my contract at Sega ended, I moved up to the Midlands and I joined Codemasters as a QA technician on a fixed term contract. So like most QA roles, it was on a sort of 3-6 month rolling basis. And it was honestly great. I mean, I learned a lot, and I think it's really weird because, as I was in QA and then I moved on to development QA, it might sound really silly, but, I studied games design and I worked in a publisher, but I think I couldn't really grasp the concept of how difficult making games was until I was in an environment where we were making games. And like, I mean, there's still a lot of things that I don't understand. I still don't know what an IBL probe is or whatever. I just don't know. And I never will probably. But yeah, I know it probably sounds really stupid, but I just really could not fathom just how complicated everything was. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like, it was just kind of, I mean, I think I spent the first 6 months as being a producer. I think it was just like a blur of just terror and fear because I just didn't understand anything. And that's not anyone's fault except for my own maybe, but it was an experience. And I learned very much through a bit of a baptism of fire kind of way, I think. And again, that's not a dig at anyone. I think it's just kind of how it is in the games industry. I don't know, but that was my own experience. That being said, I'm extremely grateful for everything that I learned, and it was a great experience. I have lots of very fond memories of it all, and I learned so much. Like, in even just like the short amount of time that I was in Dev QA, I learned so much, and it's actually like looking back while doing this presentation, I was like, I'm just such a completely different person to who I was back then. And, you know, I have I have that, you know, I'm really thankful for that. I'm really grateful for all the people that I met. And, you know, yeah, it's been great. So I I learned a lot at Codemasters, but I think, and I was really happy with the work that I was doing there, but I think ultimately, and this isn't anyone's fault or anything, I think it's just the way things go. I just never really felt like this was it for me. And I think I still had a lot of problems with my confidence. And so I just kind of felt like I needed to have a bit of a change of scenery. Also, like, I mean, no hate, but I just don't care, you know, like, well, racing games just aren't my favorite genre. I think I just wanted to try something different. And a friend of mine who worked at Ubisoft Leamington at the time urged me to apply for a role at Ubisoft for associate producer. And I honestly was just like, no, just there's no way. Like, if I apply and I don't get the job, like, I don't know what it would do to my confidence, because it was low as it was, to be honest. But you know, she urged me to do it, so I applied, and yeah, I got the job. So there we go. I started at Ubisoft Leamington just over a year ago, and I mean, fun. Is this a fun fact? Ubisoft as a studio was kind of the reason that I wanted to join the games industry. And like, is the reason I found out that there was a games industry at all. Because while I was applying for university, it was at the time Assassin's Creed Revelations had just come out, and I'd finished it, and I was just watching the credits roll, and I was like, I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of people worked on this game. Probably not thousands, don't know why I said that. But and it just kind of was a light bulb moment. I was like, I want to do this, you know. So thanks, Assassin's Creed Revelations. You it's your fault that I'm here. So yeah, like, when I found out that I was going to work for the company that made me want to join the games industry, it's just, I mean, I don't know if anyone else has had that feeling, but it felt pretty good. It felt pretty good. So I started at Ubisoft Leamington, and I think thanks to, you know, everything that I learned from Codemasters and even beforehand, I was lucky that I was able to sort of hit the ground, maybe not running, but walking very fast, I suppose. And I've just continued to learn so much. And, you know, I manage like my own, you know, small but amazing team, and it's just been so fulfilling and just amazing. And it's just been a really positive experience so far. I mean, the only bad thing, I suppose, is that we're all in lockdown here in the UK, and it sucks. I hate living in lockdown life. I don't really like working from home. I think it just doesn't suit how I like to work, but, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, working at Ubisoft and, you know, just feeling myself become more confident, you know, I finally come to accept that I am actually kind of good at my job, which is really nice. So yay. So this is, you know, my career so far, and, you know, it's sort of ups and, you know, small downs, I suppose. But just to go through some of my learning so far, that I've, you know, my little epiphany moments, I suppose. The first thing I would say is, you know, don't doubt yourself. If you're working somewhere where you feel like you don't quite fit in, or the culture isn't quite meshing with you, I wouldn't say that that's a you problem. And I'm not saying it's a studio problem either. Sorry, that sounded a bit negative, but I think there is a place for everyone in the industry, a spot, if you will. And I like to think that I've found it in Ubisoft Leamington. And I guess just my point is, you know, if you're unhappy, or you just don't feel like you've really cracked the code, I suppose, just, I mean, you know, just go somewhere else. Just to be really blunt, yeah. There's somewhere for everyone, I think. So yeah. Next is, you know, take pride in your work. and, you know, be passionate. That's a great thing, honestly. I think, you know, the games industry it's one of passion and art and, you know, working really hard. And, you know, I think in some ways the games industry hasn't really grown out of the whole, you know, everyone's like painstakingly doing something by themselves in their basement and making something amazing. And you can see it in some of the language that's used sometimes. And I don't think people even do it with, you know, animosity or anything. But one thing that I would often get told, especially like when I was in more junior positions, was that I was really lucky to be here and that I should, like, I don't know, be really thankful. And it's like, I am really thankful, but I worked really hard for it. Like, I worked really hard for my place here, and it shouldn't be abused, that, you know, passion and desire for people to be here. So yeah, just, you know, work hard, but don't throw everything else in your life away for it, because it's just not going to work out in the long run, I think. And finally, this industry just has, like, just so many people that are so talented, just so smart, so kind, so patient. And I honestly don't think I would be where I am now if not for some of them. And I won't name any names because that's really embarrassing. But yeah, I'm just really thankful for some of the amazing friends that I've made. And, you know, even if we haven't spoken in years properly, you know, I still think really fondly of people that I used to work with, and the lessons that they taught me, lessons that they probably don't even realize that they did. And yeah, just use the strength around you, I think, because there's a lot, like, trust me, there's a lot. And finally, please, if you can, join a union. So I know that this is quite a strong statement, but at the end of the day, unions are here and they are designed to protect employees and their rights in various scenarios. You may work for an amazing studio now, and, you know, like I do, but, you know, things happen. You know, studios go under or they get bought, and, you know, it's just good to have your grounds covered, I think, in that regard. And if you're part of a union, you can push for change and improvement in the games industry with fellow members. I mean, if you think about some of the issues that we have in the industry, things like, I hate the way that QA are treated in this industry, and I think that we should push to make it a better place for them. And, you know, for women and other minorities, we should absolutely be pushing for change, for better. And you can do that as part of a union more effectively, I believe. And finally, again, unions, like the games industry, I mean, it's just more games industry people that you can possibly meet, to network with, gain knowledge and make friends. And yeah, it's just great. I've only put the UK union down at the bottom just because I'm part of the UK union. I know that there's a few around the world. I don't know where everyone watching this is based, but I would suggest looking into if you have your country or your state or anywhere has their own. And yeah, that's kind of it. I'm going to leave it for questions now. So I will stop sharing my screen. And yeah,
that's lovely. Nicole, thank you so much for that. That was really interesting. And actually, people have been saying as well about different things, and I was like, oh my god, I so agree with some of the points that people are saying. The one that you did as well, and I know Sarah Simmons has said about it, which is like, you know, don't sacrifice your soul basically for the industry. You know, like, do stuff you enjoy, but make sure you've got to carry on living. It's such an important point. And I think people kind of lose that sometimes. It's very easy to just go for it all and not do that. So yeah, no, that was really fantastic. We've got a couple of questions, so I will go through them. So Shannon has written, would you say there is value in trying to experience different job roles within the industry rather than sticking to just one career path?
So yes and no. I think my experience in QA was actually really useful for when I did move into production, as was my role in Sega, but I think ultimately, and I'm going to sound a bit mean, I think, saying this, but I think I always just wanted to go into production. So every role that I kind of had before then was just like my little way of hopping into production, pretty much.
Yeah.
That being said, like some of the things that I do, like in my job, is things that I learned from previous jobs. So yeah, and I mean, even I kind of forgot to say this in my talk. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
When I got offered the role at Sega, I was actually also offered like a design internship somewhere. I won't say where, but I think I kind of was a bit like, oh, do I go for the publisher as a project coordinator, or do I go for a design internship, in development? It was like that sort of, I want to go in development, but not as a designer. And I want to do project coordination / management, but in a publisher, I don't know. I picked Sega in the end, but was that the right choice to make?
Such different career.
Maybe. I don't know.
It would have really.
Nicole might be like a lead designer somewhere. I don't know. Definitely not. But yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. It would have changed your whole sort of. It is sometimes like making those decisions. It's sort of those sliding door moments.
For sure.
You've had such lovely feedback from loads of people saying that it was a great talk. So that's always lovely. And I also appreciate, because of I think it was it Scarlett also said that you're one of the people that made to become a Women in Games ambassador. So from my point of view, that's fantastic. But you do have more questions, which is Annika has written, do you have any advice for transferring between roles? She's currently waiting to move from game design, which is her degree, to wait that switch over.
So you cut out for a second there. Did you say from game design to environment art?
Yes, that's what she's doing. But do you have any sort of just transferring that roles?
I'm not quite sure, because the thing is, when I think, especially as I went into production, I did use some of the knowledge that I had in QA, and I think it helped. And it's the same from when I went from a production role at Codemasters into Ubisoft. I'm not quite sure, because like kind of looking back, I kind of feel like I was always doing a production-y or a production light kind of role. I don't know. But I think, using your knowledge from previous roles could definitely help, provide even like a fresh perspective for people to just be better. No, not be better. That sounds really competitive. But just to provide like a different perspective.
Yes. I've lost you at the moment as well, Nicole, on yours is turned off, or whether it's for anyone else. You're back. Oh, it might just be my computer and my internet, so I apologise. You've also got another question from Kiara going, do you have any advice about being uncompromising about your career? Good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. And I feel like I'm not going to give a great answer. I think honestly, like sometimes you have to pick your battles, which really, like, I think it's not a very good answer, but I think sometimes, like, for your own well-being, I think sometimes, and I kind of had to learn the hard way, you do just have to put your head down and below the parapet and just, kind of prove your worth through other ways rather than, I guess, being honest with how you feel about certain things. And I think that when you more show your worth and show you the results that you get, then that can be more powerful sometimes.
Yes.
It's the harder way to do it, though, I think. Definitely. Yeah.
No, it's good. We have had a really super important question to do with what's the name of the cat.
Oh, this is Gigi, my co-presenter. She's sleeping on the job.
Michael Robson's also said, lovely to see Gigi.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh, sorry. And Annika's just got a follow-up part to the question before, which was, how did the application process or experience for you between studios?
So, yeah, no, that's a great question. So I guess again, I'm worried that I'm not going to give an amazing answer, but so I applied to Codemasters for the QA technician role, and I sent it out, heard back from them. I mean, this was a long time ago now, so I can't remember exact details, but you know, I had an interview. I probably, like, in retrospect, I probably looked absolutely ridiculous. I was like dressed to the nines, and I just went in and just, I think, you know, to the managers interviewed me, and I was like super professional, super like, I did X, Y, and Z at Sega, and like really upping myself. And they were like, this is just a QA role. Like, you really don't have to be going this far. But and then I did a test. And then I heard back from them like 2 weeks later saying that I had the job.
Fantastic.
And yeah, then for Ubisoft, which was, you know, the next job that I got, because even when I went into development QA, yes, I sent a CV and a covering letter, I think, but it was all like internal. So, I mean, I was interviewed for that twice, and then I got the role, so that was fine.
It definitely does vary. I know it does, because I know some studios as well, games companies, like, it's not just a couple of interviews, it could be quite a variety. And probably the different roles as well you've had.
Yeah, I think probably the best part about the Ubisoft Leamington application was I got responses so quickly. Like, really I had 2 interviews, one Skype, one in person, one, you know, when we could actually be in the same room as each other. And after my Skype call, I was actually on holiday in Portugal. So I think the guys that were interviewing were like, "This girl's in Portugal." But I got a message, an email half an hour afterwards saying, "Oh, we want you for a studio interview," which was like, yay, awesome. Had the studio interview, got an email the next day saying that I had the job. I think I cried. Yeah, I went up to my friend Michael, who's in this chat, and I was like, and hyperventilating, crying, and I think he thought someone died or something. Yeah, so that was cool. It was really fast. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. So what's I want to know. So what's your plan now? Is it carry on in production and, you know, go from where you are and just head up to that? You know, head up to whether it's becoming EP or something like that. Is that your plan? You know, your sort of dream career progress type thing?
Yeah. Short answer, yes. Long answer, yeah. I think for pretty much the first time in my career, I actually feel like there's a bit of a roadmap, I suppose, and I feel like I've got a future where I am now, which is a nice feeling. Yeah, I think it's just about moving up the ranks, really. I don't see myself leaving production at all, ever. I don't know, never say never, but you know, definitely. Yeah, that. Sorry, I feel like that's a really boring answer, but yeah.
No, I think it's good, and I think, you know, no, sometimes career paths aren't straight, and then when you suddenly get into that bit that you're like, oh my god, I absolutely love it, it makes such a big impact, and you're like, no, I can see it now, I can see where I want to go. So that's really exciting. Right, we've got one more question which we can fit in from Jeff. What is the biggest change you've noticed in the industry during your time in it?
I think the conversation around women in games and, you know, just gender in games has improved a bit since I've joined. I know that, I mean, I've had my fair share of negative experiences, as pretty much we all have, but I do see it becoming better, and I think it came off the back of some particularly bad events, not to get too negative, but I do see improvement on the way. And, you know, I think another thing I've noticed is I feel like I'm seeing less of an issue of things like crunch culture and such, which are one of, like, I would arguably say, like, pretty much the worst trait of the games industry. I'm very vocal about the fact that I hate crunch culture, and I advocate just banning it completely. And I feel like it's becoming less and less of a thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm just really lucky now that I work in a studio that doesn't really do it. but I feel like I hear about it less as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah.
I agree. I hear about it less. I mean, I might be marketing a lot of companies as well that sort of have really tried to eradicate that sort of side of it. Or I'm hearing more about that sort of, so it's really good. Should we do one last question? And I might know the answer to one, but is there a game that you would love to work on in the future?
Okay. So the developer of one of my favorite games ever is actually based in Belgium. So I'm kind of a bit like, oh, I could go back to where I grew up. So it's at Larian Studios, and they're working on Baldur's Gate 3. Oh my god, I cannot even tell you how much. Like, I have memories of me sitting on my dad's lap, watching him play the old Baldur's Gate, and it would be like so like, oh my god, full circle moment. What, once again, 2 circles. And of me like working on like a Baldur's Gate game somewhere in Belgium of all places. Oh my god, yeah, I'd love that.
I love that. That sounds fantastic.
I'm sorry, I got a bit excited thinking about Baldur's Gate.
No, but that's fantastic. What a great game. So, and actually, Anna's right. They've got a new studio in Guildford.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yeah.
So, no, but look, that was so fantastic. Thank you so much